Welcome back to another wonderful installment from the WonderCat channel. I'm your host, Cody. Today we will be delving into one of Set 5's newest archetypes, the Skybinders. Now, Skybinders weren't a particular list or archetype that I was interested in building until I'd looked at Rasal for a good minute and immediately saw its potential as a better version of Ouroboros for its deck. Rasal having multiple coloured reductions similar to the Surveyors allow this deck, or at least the Skybinder archetype, to be built a magnitude of different ways. And of course, I'm drawn to that simply for the sake of creativity and deck building. Rasal is, by traditional standards, a pretty weak card. 2k on 1 core, 5k on 3 isn't great. He doesn't have Astral himself, he relies on a board for his level 2 effect to actually put in work. What he does bring to the table, though, is an amazing amount of consistency. Since he has all coloured reduction, any board state makes him cheaper. His when summoned effect is essentially a draw 1, or you can look at it as a recycle effect, being able to grab any Skybinder card from grave, not just the ones milled on his summoning. As stated before, because Rasal has all colour reduction, there's a number of ways you can build him. Currently, your best bet is between purple-red or purple-yellow, as those two are the current colours that connect to this his specific symbol or colour. Purple-yellow has an amazing interaction with being able to use a Glare with Luster on 2 cores using purple removal, recycling it, and returning that removal back to your hand. Cat Aether is also a solid inclusion, being able to give Rasal and other supporting Skybinders Astral so they can safely swing without being blocked to trigger his when attack trigger. Since I'd already covered a purple-yellow list, I wanted to lean into the other option, which was purple-red. Red gives us access to a couple of cards I was interested in when seeing spoilers. Ferocious Prison seemed amazing into aggro matchups, but it was almost always a dead card if we're not versing some kind of token deck, so it was ultimately cut from the main deck. Red also gives us access to one of the better Astral cards in the deck, Zamitza, however you want to pronounce it, whose ability can recycle cores, allowing us to summon spirits and defend easier with magic. This deck is definitely more on the harder side of playing, pilot-wise, I think. The deck can feel hungry for cores since Rasal is always going to be eating up those 3 cores per turn to abuse his attack trigger effect, so resource management is key. The deck is split between 29 spirits, 4 nexuses, and 17 magic, but with all that said, let's get into the actual deck list. So we're going to start off with a playset of Soul Horse, 4 Oni Soldier, and 4 Raptor Aether. Soul Horse, whilst a weaker card, helps facilitate turn 2 plays and allows us to be more flexible with our wider range of magic reduction. I kind of wish it were also a Skybinder, but it's fine otherwise. The playset of Oni Soldier is kind of a must include. A solid Curse Spirit, Astral at its highest level, and of course being a Skybinder means it can be recycled off Rasal. I was particularly hyped for this card on release as a familiar with Curse, as it fits perfectly into the purple Voidlord list, so it's definitely a little all-star for me. The list originally ran 2 copies of Ouroboros as well, to mill some, add more card draw, potentially sack this off of Ouroboros' effect, but Ouroboros would consistently be milled and it just wasn't running how I liked. The playset of Raptor Aether helps us run our red package easier. It's a solid turn 2 play after Soul Horse helps support summoning Mitza. I've considered running Drago Claw instead, but I think it's a little expensive since the deck is multicolored. It's got a very solid effect, but I don't think it plays on curve as well as what I'd like. Raptor Aether feels a little underwhelming, and yet due to it being a potential 1 cost, they can swarm the board late game after being recycled with Rasal's summoned trigger. Our support spirits of the deck consist of a single Beldegor, 3 Andromeda, and 2 Cat Aether. Yes, another Beldegor inclusion. Granted, it's still only a one-off. We typically don't want our 4 to 5 drops in this deck dying, so his ability to come back from the grave isn't nearly as relevant. And saying that, he's still a great staple to include, and you always feel good milling him off Rasal. The 3 Andromeda was a later inclusion into this list. I was looking for more creature-based interaction that could help deal with keeping the board clear until Rasal could come online and start his game plan. Between Soul Horse and Raptor Aether early game, Andromeda can usually be cast turn 3 with no issues, removing any potential nexuses. The destruction of spirits became less relevant with Ava AT Field, but still shouldn't be discounted. The 2 copies of Cat Aether were originally 2 copies of Garsha Aether, Of course, from a deck building perspective, Garsha seems better as 1, it's on color, 2, it gives potential card draw, and 3, it's a 4-drop / target for Beldegor recursion. I turn to Cat Aether as a potential late game Astral Windcon. It can be used early to chip in extra damage with Soul Horse or Raptor Aether, Oni Soldier, etc. It's another potential different coloured reduction for Rasal as well, dropping him to a 1 cost. It is also, of course, a Skybinder spirit, so it can be recycled if necessary too. I did appreciate the access of extra card draw originally with Garsha Aether, but since reworking the deck a bit, we honestly don't need to be paying an extra core per summon to draw more cards, and on top of that, as stated earlier, the deck can be hungry. If you're not likely to have those extra cores in play during turns, its ability wasn't as abusable as once thought. We tie up the rest of our spirit list with 4 Rasal, 4 Mitza, and 3 Yudakata. So of course we run the playset of Rasal because he is the whole reason the deck works as well as it does. He is the boss monster, the man with the plan. He filters for us, recycles cards, removes cores, just an overall flexible card in the list. The Saga art also goes super hard, so it's a bonus if you have any of those running around in your list. Zemitsa was also more or less the driving force behind going into that purple-red build and not focusing primarily on making another purple-yellow list. All round, she's just a very solid card. Level 1 Astral, strong. Recycling cores, strong. Destroying spirits, strong. All of this with decent BP and reduction rates. You'll never really feel bad drawing her. You'll usually have access to 2 red reduction on board pretty early, so you can bring her in for pretty cheap. Yudakata as a 3-of is kind of a gripe of mine. The card feels super expensive. I mean, it's on par with Joker. 5 drops with 2 reduction will always feel rough and slow to play. Due to this, Yudakata will often sit in your hand for a couple of turns until your opponent overextends or you draw main phase magic that allows you to remove cores off an opponent's spirit, so you can benefit off her summoning effect to kill off a spirit and draw a card. It's a crazy swing when it works, don't get me wrong, but it's a bit too clunky to deserve the whole playset. I had multiple games in testing where this card would fill up my hand simply because I'd rather play something else, but wanted to hold on to it for its maximum value. Its level 2 Astral for 5k at 2 cores is awesome, it's just rough to play early game. We should note as well that these 3 spirits all have 3 different printings for them at various levels of rarity, so this deck can get super expensive if you want to bling it out. Another really cool and interesting interaction is the fact that Rasal's level 2 effect attacking trigger does, of course, stack. Having multiple Rasals at level 2 and having a Skybinder swing removing 2 cores on every attack is super, super strong. So that's the spirit list anyway. All in all, I'm pretty happy with the current lineup. Next set, we will most likely see more Skybinders, well at least I hope so, which will allow us to play around with Rasal in more archetypes and styles. I'd love to see a purple-green ramp discard control sort of list come out. We already have the beginnings of one, but it's just not where I would like to be with it right now. Our Nexus package is small and sweet, just a single playset of Volcanic Canyon. Shouldn't really be a surprise. Works with the deck perfectly. Enables coreless reduction for Zemitsa, don't know. Gives us more filter power and if necessary gives an extra 1k BP when playing aggressively. This can also be very relevant if you don't have Rasal online at the time. This card replaced Ferocious Prison and has outperformed it in terms of both speed and consistency. The Magic package is a long list of goodies and probably the biggest one of all the lists I've made so far. We're going to start with a playset of Deadly Balance, 2 Core Drain, and a Core Theft. Now, Deadly Balance is very much the quintessential purple removal spell next to Doubly Deadly. That being said, Doubly Deadly doesn't hit 2 Symbol Spirits, and with the amount of board control this deck has, we don't need to pay extra for a mediocre spell when our spirits help us kill off the opponent's board with Rasal anyway. This spell will help us combo our Beldegor if necessary from the grave. We don't mind sacking our early game Skybinders to this as they can be recycled later on. With core removal and creature removal in mind, Core Drain seems like an auto-inclusion in this list. Being able to remove 3 cores off an Exhausted Spirit is solid, being able to combo this with Rasal or Yudakata is even better. Astral is very much the polar opposite of Confront. Whilst Confront says to your opponent, you're blocking regardless if you want to or not, Astral says, you're not blocking whether you want to or not. Non-Astral decks are then incentivized to play aggressively on the backswing as to not fall behind in life, which opens up Core Drain for easy creature removal. Core Theft works in a similar way, but being able to be played at flash speed makes it particularly good. Removing cores on your opponent's turn to benefit off it at the following turn hits with you that much needed dopamine. As always, you can pitch Beldegor to this or your Skybinders to be recycled at a later date with Rasal in mind. We also run a singular copy of both Volcanic Break and Double Heart. Double Heart works great in this list since the majority of your boss spirits have Astral, or at the very least end up swinging in for free after removing all the cores off your opponent's blockers. Uticata and Volcanic Break are the only two cards in this list that care about the soul course being spent, so this fits well as a late game win con against Ice Shields. The Volcanic Break is a solid piece of red removal. A lot of our spirits don't have particularly high BP, so we can combo our Rasal attack triggers, removing cores off bigger spirits to reduce its power, flash in the Volcanic Break to finish it off. I don't think I would run more if it weren't limited, but it's still worth including, in my opinion. Lastly, our Burst Magic consists of 2 copies of Ice Shield, a playset of Starbless, and 2 Hellcrack. As much as I dislike adding Ice Shields to deck lists, this deck will eventually need that 1 to 2 extra turns to set up, where you need 1 or more Skybinders on board or an extra core to set up multiple Rasals. Ice Shield still stands as the ultimate control card, so it needs to be at least included in this deck as a couple copies. 4 Starbless, because it's the best card drawer in the game. Potential draw 4 for 2, it's just way too crazy to pass up. We run enough red in the list, we can cast it from hand without issues if necessary. Not much else to say about it, card draw is good. And last but not least, our Hellcrack. This card in your opening hand is absolutely cracked, pardon the wordplay. This can destroy aggro decks on their opening turn and allows us access to more Nexus destruction. I would run the playset if I wasn't playing Ice Shield, but since I think that the deck kind of needs at least a couple of copies of Ice Shield, we've just had to run with this 2-2 split. If you don't have Ice Shields, feel free to run it as a 4 of. All in all, the deck is probably the most fun I've had in a while, at least in terms of playing. It's kind of the epitome of what BSS is. Plenty of card draw, core removal, Nexus destruction, graveyard interaction, combat tricks. It has everything. The deck is going to set you back a fair bit at the moment, at least in comparison to, everything else, especially with set 5 still being quite new. Costing an estimated 150-ish to 200 US. Rounded up. The majority of it's coming from our playset of Mitza. If you have access to a lot of the cheaper stuff, though, you're going to get this deck for, significantly cheaper as well, which is, perfect. Mitza and their Uticata are the majority of the cost to this deck. But anyway, yeah, that's about it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this newest deck tech. If there's any more interest moving forward, I'm more than happy to add the yellow-purple variant to the list of decks to be covered, as I think it has the potential to be just as disgusting. Don't forget to like and subscribe, or Rasal might whiff on those Skybinders in your next game. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your week. This is Cody from the Wondercat channel, signing off. Ta-ta!